Every story leaves something behind: a whisper, a shadow, a question that was never answered. Here, we dig through the forgotten files, the unsolved mysteries, the chilling true crimes, and the horrors people wish had stayed buried. From haunted legends to real-life nightmares, every tale is pulled straight from the horror archives. So turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and step carefully, because once a story enters the horror archives, it never truly leaves.
Tonight we have 3 stories, all set at gas stations, places most of us stop at without thinking twice. By the end of these, you might think a little longer before pulling off the highway late at night. Our first story was sent in by a listener who worked at a remote station in Kansas. What happened at Pump 7 one night made him quit within the week, and the security footage only made it worse. The woman at Pump 7 hadn't moved in 40 minutes. I know because I'd been watching her from the register since she pulled in, and the digital clock on the wall behind me had ticked from 2:14 to 2:54 a.m. without her so much as shifting her weight. I was working the graveyard shift at a Conoco off Highway 56 in western Kansas. If you've never driven through that part of the state at night, it's hard to describe how flat and empty it gets. The station sat at the intersection of 2 county roads, with nothing around it for miles but wheat fields and darkness. On clear nights, you could see headlights approaching from 20 minutes away. On overcast nights like this one, the station's fluorescent canopy was the only light in any direction. It felt like floating on a raft in the middle of a black ocean. She pulled up in a beige sedan, older model, maybe a Camry. No front plate. She got out, walked to the pump, and just stood there. She was facing the pump like she was reading the screen, but she never lifted the nozzle, never swiped a card, just stood with her back to the store, perfectly still. I figured maybe she was on the phone. Maybe she was confused. I went back to restocking the cigarette shelf, but every time I glanced out the window, she was exactly the same. Same posture, same angle, like a mannequin someone had positioned there. Around the 30-minute mark, I started to feel genuinely uneasy. Our pumps have a pre-authorization timer. If nobody activates the pump within 5 minutes, the screen resets. That screen had reset at least 6 times, and the little blue glow kept cycling back to the welcome message, and she didn't react to any of it. I thought about going out there. Company policy was to check on anyone loitering for more than 15 minutes, but something about the way she was standing made me not want to. Her arms were at her sides, not in her pockets, not holding anything, just hanging, and her head was tilted slightly forward, like she was looking at the ground. But from my angle through the window, it almost looked like she didn't have a face at all, just the back of dark hair. At 2:58, another car pulled in. A pickup truck, Pump 3. A guy got out, started fueling. I watched him glance at the woman once, then again, then a third time. He finished pumping fast and came inside. He set a 20 on the counter and said, "Is that lady okay?" I told him I didn't know. He said she was staring at me the whole time I was pumping. I told him that was impossible. From where she was standing, she was facing away from Pump 3. He shook his head and said, "No, man." She turned around. She was facing me. She didn't blink once. I looked out the window. She was facing the pump again, same position as before, like she'd never moved. The guy took his change and left quickly. I locked the front door. I'm not supposed to do that during operating hours, but I did it anyway. I sat behind the counter and watched her. At 3:12, every light under the canopy flickered once, just once, and when they came back on, she was 10 feet closer to the store, still the same posture, arms at her sides, head tilted forward, but she was no longer at the pump. She was standing in the middle of the lot, facing the front door. I didn't see her move. I was looking right at her when the lights flickered, and when they came back, she was just closer. I called the county sheriff, told them there was a woman behaving erratically. They said they'd send someone. The nearest deputy was 30 minutes out. The lights flickered again at 3:19. She was at the edge of the sidewalk now, maybe 15 feet from the glass door. I could see her face for the first time. She was smiling, not a normal smile, too wide, like someone who'd been told what a smile looked like, but had never actually seen one. I went into the back stockroom. There are no windows back there. I sat on a crate of motor oil and waited for the deputy. He arrived at 3:47, called me on the store phone, said the lot was empty. No sedan, no woman, no one at pump 7. I pulled the security footage the next morning. The camera had her pulling in at 2:14, just like I remembered. But every frame after that, for the entire 90 minutes, the image at pump 7 was just static, a gray, buzzing rectangle where she should have been. The rest of the frame was crystal clear. I put in my 2 weeks that afternoon. That one is the kind of story that makes you watch the security monitors a little differently. The next one comes from a long distance.
And that's where tonight's file closes, but the archives are far from empty. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover more horrors, mysteries, and true crimes hidden in the horror archives. Until next time, keep the lights low, keep listening, because you never know what story we'll uncover next.